The latest disclosure claiming the COVID debate was rigged. Joining us now to discuss is the legal and the First Amendment issues is Mike Davis, former chief counsel for nominations at the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's now the founder and the president of the Article 3 Project. Mike, welcome to the show. All right, these Twitter files have given us quite a bit, some stuff that we thought was true and now we know is true. The latest one showing, as I mentioned, that the White House was asking Twitter to censor certain content concerned about COVID misinformation. But we're talking about First Amendment rights here. So what kind of First Amendment violation does this show to you?
It's a clear First Amendment violation for the federal government to collude with private actors, especially big tech monopolists, to censor, silence, and deplatform and cancel Americans for their views on COVID. We saw big tech working with big government to censor doctors and scientists for their COVID views. And we have to think how many people unnecessarily suffered and even died because big tech and big government censored doctors and scientists who ended up being correct in their views on COVID.
Okay, so what can be done here? We're learning all this information, but what are the legal ramifications? Because we're talking about the White House. I mean, does this go to the Supreme Court? What happens?
It is. It's very hard to bring Bivens actions or litigation against federal employees based upon free speech violations. So you can bring it. You can't. You could probably bring a lawsuit seeking an injunction and having a court order that these federal government officials can no longer do this going forward. But getting monetary damages for prior censorship is going to be tough. At the end of the day, Congress needs to step up here. That Congress needs to update and enforce our century-old antitrust laws to break up big tech. They have too much power, and it is too easy for big government to use Section 230 immunity and antitrust amnesty to get big tech platforms like Google and Facebook to do their bidding. So we need to break up big tech, and we also need to outlaw, make it very clear it is illegal for federal employees to censor Americans, to work with private actors to censor Americans. Actually, President Trump came out with some very good policy recommendations on this last week.
Okay, so what is the solve, though, at the end of the day? Because you have these big tech companies who, they have their own policies in place, but this just shows that you have government who's trying to utilize them. That's not their fault that they've been successful at the end of the day. So are they getting discriminated against because they're so big and they're so successful?
Well, I don't know if it's big or successful. The reason they're monopolists is because they've had antitrust amnesty for the last 15 years, where they've been immune from the antitrust laws, and they've also had this Section 230 immunity, where they get this giant subsidy from the federal government in the form of protections from lawsuits. And it's this unholy alliance between big tech and big government. They're working hand in glove to censor Americans. And you see that these big tech platforms, the only reason we're learning about this is because Elon Musk made this horrific investment to buy Twitter. Think about what's happening at Facebook that's 10 times bigger than Twitter, or at Google that's 25 times bigger than Twitter. These big tech platforms have too much power, and they're working with government to harm Americans. This cannot continue.
Okay, so sticking with the Supreme Court, I do want to talk to you about this because just moments ago, the Supreme Court has come out. They've weighed in on the merits of Title 42, which is a Trump-era health policy that allowed border officials to block migrants from entering our country. Biden wanted this to be removed. It was supposed to end today, and the Supreme Court has now agreed with the 19 red states whose attorneys generals said, no, please keep this in place. We have a crisis at our southern border. So the Supreme Court has said, hey, we're keeping it in place for now, and we will actually debate on this later in this term. What does this all mean? What can we expect from the Supreme Court on this? What does this ruling today indicate to you?
Well, this is an important ruling to preserve the status quo because under Title 42 U.S.C. 265, what it allows the federal government to expel economic migrants from places where they have communicable diseases, so they don't bring their communicable diseases to the United States. These leftists, these Democrats, think the government has all this power during COVID to control the day-to-day lives of everyday Americans, but somehow the federal government doesn't have the power under Title 42 to keep these migrants out of our country. What this means is that, at least for now, our border is not going to get overwhelmed, because the second Title 42 lifts, they're going to overwhelm our southern border, because what Title 42 does is it makes it easier for the federal government to kick out these migrants. And when Title 42 is gone, then they have due process rights and legal rights, and it's very hard to keep out these migrants.
Yeah, we'll see how long, when they do actually rule on it, how long it is kept in place. But this is an interesting one, a big win for those 19 states and those attorney generals as well. Mike Davis, always good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.